Welcome back, guys. In this class, we're going to learn about activities, or the different pages in an Android app. We're going to learn how to navigate between activities, take user input when the user presses a button in our app, and provide that oh-so-useful back button, which Android calls up navigation. Now that we have our screens laid out, let's start interacting with them. We want the user to be able to navigate to the second activity by pressing our button, but this will require us doing a few things first. We want to gather input from this edit text and then not only start a new activity, but send this text to the new activity. And remember, an activity is just a fancy term for a new page, so don't overthink it. So let's start with the main activity Java file. We need to create a new method that will be called when the button is pressed. Let's cleverly name this method public void start activity 2 button click. It will have one argument, which is a view. This argument is required by Android in order for this method to be called by a button. The view that is sent as the argument is simply the button that called the method. In our case, this will be the start activity 2 button. Android is telling us that we need to import a library in order to use the view in our code. The simplest way to do this is to press Alt and Enter at the same time, and Android Studio will add the import call automatically. Now the first thing we need to do is to get the view that the text was entered into. And remember, a view is any item on screen that the user can interact with. I remember always being thrown off by that term, since view didn't seem like the right name, but you'll eventually get used to it. So the edit text is a view. In order to get a reference to this view, we must get a reference to it through its ID. So first create the edit text variable editTextEt and set it equal to find view by ID r.id. Well, we've got a pretty good naming convention in place, so if I remember correctly, we should be looking for arg_edit_text. But just to be sure, let's check the layout for the ID name. If we open activity_main and click on our edit text, we can confirm that this view is called arg_edit_text. Good. We've got the right guy. Go back to main activity. If you haven't pressed Alt-Enter yet to import edit text, do that now. Also, since findViewById returns only the view object, we must cast this to whatever specific view we want to interact with. In this case, it's an edit text. Now that we have a reference to our view, let's get the text from it. Type string text to send equals et.getText.toString. Now our string contains the information we want from the edit text. And since the user expects a new activity to start, let's do that now. An activity is started from an intent. According to the Android documentation, an intent is an abstract description of an operation to be performed. So basically, we want to do something, and an intent is how we tell Android what we want to do. Type intent equals new intent. Press Alt-Enter to import intent, and press Ctrl-P to see what arguments intent expects. We will be using the fifth item on this list. The first argument is context, which is basically just a reference to this application. The second argument is the name of the class we want to start. For the first argument, just type this, referring to this activity, which extends from context. For the second argument, type activity2.class, which is the class we want to start. Now that we have our intent, we need to add our text to it so it can be passed on to activity 2. So type intent.putExtra. The first argument here is the key, which is specific to this argument we are passing. I typically just use the variable name as the key, so type text to send and add the word key. Make sure you are using the same spelling and capitalization as I am here. For the second argument, add our string, text to send. We commit our changes by typing start activity intent. So our button click method is complete, but it is not being called by any other object. This is indicated by the method name being sort of grayed out. Click on our activity underscore main XML and then click on the Start Second Activity button. In the Properties tab, there's a field called onClick. This is the method that gets called when we click the button. Right now, it is set to none, so the button effectively does nothing. Click on the drop-down menu and select the method we just created, Start Activity 2 button click. If we switch to our Text tab and scroll down to our button code, we see that the attribute Android:onClick was created with the name of our method. Now we get this error saying that our method is missing or is typed incorrectly. I'm not sure why Android Studio does this, but it adds the class name in parentheses, and that is what causes this error. So just delete everything after the method name, and that will solve this problem. Now when we switch to our Java file, we see that the method name is colored black, indicating that this method is being called from somewhere in the app, which we know is that button. Now that we have created our intent and started our activity, we don't need to do anything else to activity 2 in order for it to start. We do, however, need to add some code to retrieve that text that we sent. Type bundle B equals getIntent.getExtras. A bundle is the way Android stores arguments mapped to string keys like we just did. GetIntent gets the intent that called this activity, and getExtras just gets the extras. So to retrieve our string, type string text that was sent equals b.getString, and type in our key, text to send key. For future reference, it would be wise to create a global variable to hold this key that would be referenced by this method and the method that set the extra. That way you won't spend an hour tracking down a little spelling error. But for now, this will do. Just make sure everything is spelled correctly, including the correct capitalization. Now that we have our string, let's display it on screen. Just like we did with the edit text from before, let's create a reference to the text view that we want to change. Type TextViewTV equals TextView, find view by ID r.id. And scroll down to argument text view. Again, just to be sure we got the right name, let's quickly look at our layout class and confirm we have the right ID. And we do. Now go back to the code, and to set the text, type tv.setText, text that was sent. And we're done. Let's take it for a test drive. If your emulator is still running from before, you can press this stop button to stop it, or just go right over the play button and click it. Make sure the right device is selected and click OK. Once the app starts, we can see our hint indicating what text we want. Let's type, "Hello Android." Then click the button. And the text was sent. Our code worked. Let's go back and try it again. How about something like, "My app." We did it. Now before we finish this lesson, I want to change one thing. Isn't there usually a back button in the corner? And I'd kind of like to change the title for just this page of the app. Go back to Android Studio. Stop your app if you feel so inclined, and open the manifest folder. Open the Android manifest.xml file. Be very careful changing any code in here. This has control over the activities in your app. Every activity you add is added to this manifest file. Go down to where it says activity Android:name equals activity 2. Before the closing caret, add the line Android:label equals activity space 2. The label is the title of the page that will be shown to the user. Then add the line Android:parent activity name equals .main activity. Don't forget that first period. Setting a parent to an activity automatically adds the back button and makes that back button return to the activity we specified here. Now let's run our app again. Click this checkbox on the bottom so we don't have to see this prompt every time. Let's type back button and click send. Our text was passed, our title is changed, and we indeed have our back button. Way to go! Alright, in the next lesson, we're going to go over saving and loading data using preferences as we work our way down this activity. See you next class.